The great world rhythm were heartbeats of one soul. To feel was a flame discovery of God. All mind was a single heart of many strings, all life a song of many meeting lines. For words were many, but the self was one. This knowledge was now made a cosmos seed. This seed was cased in the safety of the light. It needed not a shield of ignorance.
Good morning. Advance Happy New Year. So we're beginning with Canto 3 today in Book 3, The House of the Spirit and the New Creation, on page 317. So I want to review a little bit, and for that I'm going to read a short letter of Sri Aurobindo's and a little bit of commentary by Bhavan. So this is from her book, Volume 2 of the English of Savitri, which deals with this Book 3 of Savitri. So, kind of in an introduction, she says, in the Mahabharata version of the legend of Satyavan and Savitri, well, there's nothing I can do. So, in the Mahabharata version of the legend of Satyavan and Savitri, Savitri's father, King Aswapati, is said to have worshipped the goddess Savitri for 18 years, praying for 100 sons. At the end of that time, the goddess blesses him and tells him that Brahma, the creator, has granted him the boon of a single daughter who will fulfill all his wishes. Can we see any parallel in Sri Aurobindo's Savitri to this 18 years yagna mentioned in the legend? Possibly we can interpret these years as marking steps in Aswapati's quest. But we'll see at the beginning of the canto that Aswapati kind of encounters a delay in his progress, and it goes for years. So we'll read that a little bit later. But this is the important thing I wanted to mention was Sri Aurobindo's letter about King Aswapati's journey. So in a letter to Amal Kiran, Sri Aurobindo has said that in his poem, Aswapati's yoga falls into 3 parts or stages. First, he is achieving his own spiritual self-fulfillment as an individual, and this is described as the yoga of the king. That's in Book 1. Next, he makes the ascent as a typical representative of the race to win the possibility of discovery and possession of all the planes of consciousness, and this is described in the 2nd book. But this too is as yet only an individual victory. Finally, he aspires no longer for himself, but for all, for a universal realization and new creation. That is described in the book of the Divine Mother. So we see this canto, Canto 3, is the house of the Spirit and the new creation. Okay, so let's see if there's... So that's mainly it, and then we see references to this in the beginning of the canto. I can just mention too that In the last canto that we were reading, Canto 2, the Adoration of the Divine Mother, that King Aswapati encounters the Divine Mother. So I'll just review that briefly on page 312. So after, and just to go back, after going through the series of worlds in Book 2, he ascends all these series of inner worlds. He comes up to a certain summit and reaches the unknowable, the transcendent divine. So that is described in Canto 1 of Book 3. So that's called the pursuit of the unknowable. And so it refers to that here in the section that I'll read. Even while he stood on being's naked edge, this is on 312, and all the passion and seeking of his soul faced their extinction in some featureless vast, the presence he yearned for suddenly drew close. Across the silence of the ultimate calm, out of a marvelous transcendence core, a body of wonder and translucency, as if a sweet mystic summary of herself, escaping into the original bliss, had come enlarged out of eternity. Someone came, infinite and absolute, a being of wisdom, power, and delight, even as a mother draws her child to her arms, took to her breast nature and world and soul, abolishing the signless emptiness, breaking the vacancy and voiceless hush, piercing the limitless unknowable, into the liberty of the motionless depths, a beautiful and felicitous luster stole. The power, the light, the bliss no word can speak, imaged itself in a surprising beam, and built a golden passage to his heart, touching through him all longing sentient things. The moment's sweetness of the all-beautiful canceled the vanity of the cosmic world. And then just at the end of that Canto 2 on page 316, he says, now other claims had hushed in him their cry. Only he longed to draw her presence and power into his heart and mind and breathing frame. Only he yearned to call forever down her healing touch of love and truth and joy into the darkness of the suffering world. His soul was freed and given to her alone. So we see here Aswapati aspiring to bring down this new creation, a transformation of the world. So now let's read through Canto 3 one time, and then we'll go back and comment on it afterwards. So on page 317, Tinika, are you ready?
The house of the Spirit and the new creation. A mightier task remained than all he had done. To that he turned from which all being comes, a sign attending from the secrecy, which knows the truth, ungrasped behind our thoughts, and guards the world with its all-seeing gaze. In the unapproachable stillness of his soul, intense, one-pointed, monumental, lone, patient, he sat like an incarnate hope, motionless on a pedestal of prayer. A strength he sought that was not yet on earth, help from a power too great for mortal will, the light of a truth now only seen afar, a sanction from his high omnipotent source. But from the appalling heights there stooped no voice. The timeless lids were closed, no opening came. A neutral, helpless void oppressed the years. In the texture of our bound humanity, he felt a stark resistance, huge and dumb, of our inconscient and unseeing base, the stubborn mute rejection in life's death, the ignorant no in the origin of things.
Thank you. B?
A veiled collaboration with the night, even in himself survived and hid from his view. Still something in his earthly being kept its kinship with the inconscient whence it came, a shadowy unity with a vanished past, treasured in an old world frame was lurking there, secret, unnoted by the illumined mind, and in the subconscious whispers and in dream still murmured at the mind's and spirit's choice. Its treacherous elements spread like slippery grains, hoping the incoming truth might stumble and fall, and old ideal voices wandering moaned and pleaded for a heavenly leniency to the gracious imperfections of our earth and the sweet weaknesses of our mortal state. This now he willed to discover and exile, the element in him betraying God.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to?
All nature's recondite spaces were stripped bare, all her dim crypts and corners searched with fire, where refuge, instincts, and unshaped revolts could shelter find in darkness sanctuary. Against the white purity of heaven's cleansing flame, all seemed to have perished that was undivine. Yet some minutest dissident might escape, and still a center lurk of the blind force, for the inconsistent too is infinite. The more its abyss was insist to sound, the more it stretches endlessly. Then, lest a human cry should spoil the truth, he tore desire up from its bleeding roots and offered to the gods the vacant place. Thus could he bear the touch immaculate. A last and mightiest transformation came. His soul was all in front like a great sea, flooding the mind and body with its waves. His being spread to embrace the universe, united the within and the without, to make of life a cosmic harmony, an empire of the immanent divine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pravi?
In this tremendous universality, not only his soul nature and mind sense included every soul and mind in his, but even the life of flesh and nerve was changed, and grew one flesh and nerve with all that lives. He felt the joy of others as his joy. He bore the grief of others as his grief. His universal sympathy upbore, immense like ocean, the creation's load. As earth upbears all beings' sacrifice, thrilled with the hidden transcendent's joy and peace. There was no more division's endless scroll. One grew the spirit's secret unity. All nature felt again the single bliss. There was no cleavage between soul and soul. There was no barrier between world and God. Overpowered were form and memory's limiting line. The covering mind was seized and torn apart. It was dissolved, and now no more could be. The one consciousness that made the world was seen. All now was luminosity and force.
Thank you.
Abolishing its last thin fainting trace, the circle of the little self was gone. The separate being could no more be felt. It disappeared and knew itself no more, lost in the spirit's wide identity. His nature grew a moment of the all. His nature grew a movement of the all, exploring itself to find that all was he. His soul was a delegation of the all. That turned from itself to join the one supreme. Transcended was the human formula, man's heart that had obscured the inviolable, assumed the mighty beating of the gods. His seeking mind seized in the truth that knows. His life was a flow of the universal life. He stood fulfilled of the world's highest line, awaiting the ascent beyond the world, awaiting the descent of the world to save.
Thank you.
A splendor and a symbol wrapped to the earth, serene emphasis looked and hollowed vast. Surrendered wise infinitude were close, and bright remoteness leaned near and keen. Sense failed, and that tremendous lucencies. Ethereal voice from his hearing fell, and though potent no more sank large and pale, like a tired god into a mysterious seas. The robes of mortal thinking were cast down, leaving his knowledge bare to absolute sight. Fate's grieving seas and nature's sleepless spur. The athlete, heaving of the will, were stilled in the omnipotence moving peace. Life in his members lay down, vast and mute, naked, unwalled, unrifted it bore, the immense regardless of immortality. The last movement died, and all at once grew still. A weight that was the unseen translucent hand laid on his limbs the spirit measureless seals. Infinite shallowed him into shoreless trance.
Thank you. Mark.
As one who sets his sail towards mysterious shores, driven through huge oceans by the breath of God, the fathomless below, the unknown around, his soul abandoned the blind star field, space, afar from all that makes the measured world. Plunging to hidden eternities, it withdrew back from mind's foaming surface to the vast, voiceless within us in omniscient sleep. above the imperfect reach of word and thought, beyond the sight that seeks support of form, lost in deep tracts of superconscient light, or voyaging in blank, featureless nothingness, so in the trackless incommensurable, or past not self and selflessness, transgressing the dream shores of conscious mind, he reached at last his sempiternal base. On sorrowless heights no winging cry disturbs, pure and untouched above his mortal play is spread the spirit's hushed immobile air. There no beginning is, and there no end. There is a stable force of all that moves. There the aeonic laborer is at rest.
Thank you.
There turns no keyed creation in the void, no giant mechanism washed by a soul. There creaks no fate-turned huge machinery, the marriage of evil with good within one beast, the clash of strife in the very clasp of love, the dangerous pain of life's experiment. In the values of inconsequence and chance, the peril of mind's gamble, throwing our lives as stake in a wager of indifferent gods, and the shifting lights and shadows of the idea, falling upon the surface consciousness and in the dream of a mute witness soul, creating the error of a half-seen world, where knowledge is a seeking ignorance, life's steps a stumbling series without suit, its aspect of fortuitous design, its equal measure of the true and false, in that immobile and immutable realm, find no excess, no cause, no right to live. There only reigns the Spirit's motionless power, poised in itself through still eternity, and its omniscient and omnipotent peace.
Thank you.
Thought clashes not with thought, and truth with truth. There is no war of right with rival right. There are no stumbling and half-seen lives, passing from chance to unexpected chance. No suffering of hearts compelled to beat in bodies of the inert inconscious make. Armed with the immune occult unsinking fire, the guardians of eternity keep its law, forever fixed upon truth's giant base, in her magnificent and termless home. There, nature, on her dumb spiritual couch, immutably transcended, knows her source. And to the stir of multitudinous worlds, ascends unmoved in a perpetual calm. All causing, all sustaining and aloof, the witness looks from his unshaken poise, and eyes immense regarding all things done. Apart, at peace above creation's stir, immersed in the eternal altitudes, he abode defended in his shoreless self, companioned only by all-seeing One.
Thank you.
A mind too mighty to be bound by thought. A life too boundless for the play in space. A soul without borders, unconvinced of time. He felt the extinction of the world's long pain, He became the unborn self that never dies. He joined the sessions of infinity. On the cosmic murmur, primal loneliness fell. Annulled was the contact formed with time-born things. Empty grew nature's wide community. All things were brought back to their formless seed. The world was silent for a cyclic hour. Although the afflicted nature he had left maintained beneath him her broad, numberless fields, her enormous act, receding, failed remote, as if a soulless dream at last had ceased. No voice came down from the high silences. None answered from her desolate solitudes. A stillness of cessation reigned, the wide immortal hush before the gods are born. A universal force awaited, mute, the veiled transcendence' ultimate decree.
Thank you.
Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea exploring its own depth. A living oneness widened at its core and joined him to unnumbered multitudes. A bliss, a light, a power, a flame white love caught all into a soul immense embrace. Existence found its truth on oneness breast, and each become the self and face of all. The great world rhythms were heartbeats of the one soul. To feel was a flame discovery of God. All mind was a single harp of many strings. All life a songs of many meeting lives. For worlds were many, but the self was one. This knowledge now was made a cosmos seed. This seed was cast in the safety of the light. It needed not a seed of ignorance. Then from the trance of that tremendous collapse, and from the throbbing of that single heart, and from the naked spirit's victory, a new and marvelous creation rose.
Thank you.
Incalculable, outflowing infinitudes, laughing out an unmeasured happiness, lived their innumerable unity. Worlds where the being is unbound and wide, bodied unthinkably the egoless self, rapture of beatific energies, joined time to the timeless, poles of a single joy. White vasts was seen where all is wrapped in all. There were no contraries, no sundered parts. All by spiritual links were joined to all, and bound indissolubly to the one. Each was unique, but took all lives as his own. And, following out these tones of the infinite, recognized in himself the universe. A splendid center of infinity's world, pushed to its zenith's height, its last expanse, felt the divinity of its own self-bliss, repeated in its numberless other selves. It took up tirelessly into its scope persons and figures of the impersonal, as if prolonging in a ceaseless count. In a rapturous multiplication sum, the recurring decimals of eternity.
Thank you.
None was apart, none lived for himself alone. Each lived for God in him and God in all. Each soulness inexpressibly held the whole. Their oneness was not tied to monotone. It showed 1,000 aspects of itself, its calm, immutable stability, upbore on a changeless ground forever safe, compelled to a spontaneous servitude, the ever-changing, incalculable steps, the seeming reckless dance's subtle plan of immense world forces in their perfect play. Appearance looked back to its hidden truth and made of difference oneness's smiling play. It made all persons fractions of the unique, yet all were beings, secret integers. All struggle was turned to a sweet strife of love in the harmonized circle of a sure embrace. Identity's reconciling happiness gave a rich security to difference. On a meeting line of hazardous extremes, the game of games was played to its breaking point, where through self-finding by divine self-loss, there leaps out unity's supreme delight, whose blissful undivided sweetness feels a communality of the absolute.
Thank you.
Let's see if I can. There was no sob of suffering anywhere. Experience ran from point to point of joy. Bliss was the pure undying truth of things. All nature was a conscious front of God. A wisdom worked in all, self-moved, self-sure, a plenitude of illuminated light, an authenticity of intuitive truth, a glory and passion of creative force. Infallible, leaping from eternity, the moment thought inspired the passing act. A word, a laughter, sprang from silence breast. A rhythm of beauty in the calm of space, a knowledge in the fathomless heart of time, all turned to all without reserve recoil, a single ecstasy without a break. Love was clothed and thrilled identity in the throbbing heart of all that dominates life.
Thank you. I'll continue. A universal vision that unites, a sympathy of nerve replying to nerve, hearing that listens to thought's inner sound and follows the rhythmic meanings of the heart, a touch that needs not hands to feel, to clasp, were there the native means of consciousness, and heightened the intimacy of soul with soul. A grand orchestra of spiritual powers, a diapason of soul interchange, harmonized a oneness deep, immeasurable. In these new worlds projected, he became a portion of the universal gaze, a station of the all-inhabiting light, a ripple on a single sea of peace. His mind answered to countless communing minds. His words were syllables of the cosmos speech. His life, a field of the vast cosmic stir. He felt the footsteps of 1,000,000 wills moving in unison to a single goal. A stream ever newborn that never dies, caught in its 1,000-fold current's ravishing flow, with eddies of immortal sweetness thrilled. He bore coiling through his members as they passed calm movements of interminable delight, the bliss of a myriad myriads who are one. Tinka.
In this vast outbreak of perfection's law, imposing its fixity on the flux of things, he saw a hierarchy of loosened planes, and fjord to his highest kingdom of God state, attuning to one truth their own right rule, each housed the gladness of a bright degree, alone in beauty, perfect in self-kind, an image cast by one deep truth absolute, married to all in happy difference. Each gave its powers to help its neighbor's parts, but suffered no diminution by the gift. Profiteers of a mystic interchange, they grew by what they took and what they gave. All others they felt as their own complements, one in the might and joy of multitude. Even in the poise where oneness draws apart to feel the rapture of its separate selves, the soul in its solitude yearned toward the all, and the many turned to look back at the one.
Thank you.
And all revealing, all creating bliss, seeking for forms to manifest truths divine, aligned in their sufficient mystery, in their significant mystery, the gleams of the symbols of the ineffable, blazoned like hues, upon a colorless air, on the white purity of the witness soul. These hues were the very prism of the Supreme. His beauty, power, delight, creation's cause, a vast truth consciousness took up these signs to pass them on to some divine child heart that looked on them with laughter and delight, and joyed in these transcendent images, living and real as the truths they house. The Spirit's white neutrality became a playground of miracles, a rendezvous for the secret powers of a mystic timelessness. It made of space a marvel house of God. It poured through time its works of ageless might, unveiled, seen as alluring, rapturous face, the wonder and the beauty of its love and force. The eternal goddess moved in her cosmic house, sporting with God as a mother with her child. To him the universe was her bosom of love. His toys were the immortal verities.
Thank you.
All here, self-lost, had there its divine place. The powers that here betray our hearts and air were that sovereign in truth, perfect in joy, masters in a creation without flaw, possessors of their own infinitude. Their mind, a splendid sun of the vision's rays, shaped substance by the glory of its thoughts, and moved amidst the grandeur of its dreams. Imagination's great ensorceling rod, summoned the unknown and gave to it a home. Outspread luxurianity in golden air, truth's Irish-colored wings of fantasy, are sang to the intuitive heart of joy, wonder's dream notes that bring the real close. Its power that makes the unknowable near and true. In the temple of the ideal shrined the One. It peopled thought and mind and happy sense. Filled with bright aspects of the mighty of God and living persons of the One Supreme, the speech that voices the ineffable, the ray revealing unseen presences, the virgin forms through which the formless shines, the word that ushers divine experience, and the ideas that crown the infinite.
Thank you.
There was no gulf between the thought and fact. Ever they replied like bird to calling bird. The will obeyed the thought, the act the will. There was a harmony woven twixt soul and soul, a marriage with eternity divinized time. Their life pursued, unwearied of her sport, joy in her heart and laughter on her lips. The bright adventure of God's game of chance. In her ingenious ardor of caprice, in her transfiguring mirth, she mapped on time, a fascinating puzzle of events, lured at each turn by new vicissitudes, to self-discovery that could never cease. Ever she framed stark bonds for the will to break, brought new creations for the thought's surprise, and passionate ventures for the heart to dare, where truth recurred with an unexpected face, or else repeated old familiar joy, like the return of a delightful rhyme.
Thank you.
At hide and seek on the mother wisdom's breast, an artist teeming with her world idea, she never could exhaust its numberless thoughts, and vast adventure into thinking shapes, and trial and lure of a new living's dreams. And tired of sameness, and untired of change, endlessly she unrolled her moving act, a mystery drama of divine delight, a living poem of world ecstasy, a kakemono of significant forms, a coiled perspective of developing scenes, a brilliant chase of self-revealing shapes, an ardent hunt of soul looking for soul, a seeking and a findings. Their matter is the spirit's firm density, an artistry of glad outwardness of self, a treasure house of lasting images, where sense can build a world of pure delight. The home of a perpetual happiness, it lodged the hours as in a pleasant inn. The senses there were outlets of the soul. Even the youngest child thought of the mind incarnated some touch of highest things.
Thank you.
Their substances was a resonant harp of self, a net for a constant lightning of the spirits, a magnet power of love's intensity, whose yearning through and absorption's cry, grey God's approaches, close, sweet, wonderful. Its solidity was a mass of heavenly make. Its fixity and sweet performances of charm made a bright pedestal for felicity. Its bodies, woven by a divine sense, prolonged by nerves of souls clasped with souls. Its warm play of eternal size and touch, reflected to glow and thrilling of earth's joy, minds climbing brilliant roads, the spirit's bliss, life's rapture kept for ever is flame and cry. All that now possess lived immortal there, in the proud beauty and the fine harmony of matter plastic of spiritual light. Its ordered hours proclaimed the eternal loves. Vision reposed on sanctity and deathless form. Time was eternity's transparent robe. An architect heaving out self's living rock, phenomenon built reality's summer house on the beaches of the sea of infinity.
Thank you.
Against this glory of spiritual states, their parallels and yet their opposites, floated and swayed, eclipsed and shadow-like, as if a doubt made substance flickering, pale, this other scheme to vast negations found. A world that knows not its inhabitant self, labors to find its cause and need to be. A spirit ignorant of the world it made, obscured by matter, travestied by life, struggles to emerge, to be free, to know and reign. These were close tied in one disharmony, yet the divergent lines met not at all. Three powers governed its irrational course. In the beginning, an unknowing force, in the middle, an embodied striving soul, in its end, a silent spirit denying life. A dull and infelicitous interlude unrolls its dubious truths to a questioning mind, compelled by the ignorant power to play its part and to record her inconclusive tale, the mystery of her inconscient plan and the riddle of a being born from night by a marriage of necessity with chance. This darkness hides our nobler destiny.
Thank you.
A chrysalis of a great and glorious truth. It stifles the winged marble in its sheath, lest from the prison of matter it escape, and wasting its beauty on the formless vast, merged into the unknowable's mystery, leave unfulfilled the world's miraculous fate, as yet thought only some high spirit's dream, or a vexed illusion in man's toiling mind. A new creation from the old shall rise, a knowledge inarticulate finds speech, beauty suppressed burst into paradise bloom, pleasure and pain dive into absolute bliss. A tongueless oracle shall speak at last, the superconscient conscious growth on earth. The eternal's wonders join the dance of time, but now all seemed a vainly teeming vast, upheld by a deluded energy, to a spectator self-absorbed and mute, careless of the unmeaning show he watched, regarding the bizarre procession pass, like one who waits for an expected end.
Thank you.
He saw a world that is from a world to be. There he divined rather than saw or felt, far off upon the rim of consciousness, transient and frail, this little whirling globe, and on it left like a lost dream's vain mould, a fragile copy of the spirit's shell, his body gathered into mystic sleep. A foreign shape it seemed, a mythic shade. Alien now seemed that dim far universe. Self and eternity alone were true. Then memory climbed to him from the striving plains, bringing a cry from once loved cherished things, and to the cry as to its own lost call, a ray replied from the occult supreme. For even there the boundless oneness dwells. To its own sight unrecognizable, it lives still sunk in its own tenebrous seas, upholding the world's inconscient unity, hidden in matter's insentient multitude.
Thank you.
The seed self sown in the indeterminate forfeits its glory of divinity, concealing the omnipotence of its force, concealing the omniscience of its soul, an agent of its own transcendent will. It merges knowledge in the inconscient deep, accepting error, sorrow, death, and pain. It pays the ransom of the ignorant night, redeeming by its substance nature's fall. Himself he knew, and why his soul had gone into earth's passionate obscurity to share the labor of an errant power, which by division hopes to find the one. Two beings he was, one wide and free above, one struggling, bound, intense its portion here. A tie between them still could bridge two worlds. There was a dim response, a distant breath. All had not ceased in the unbounded hush. His heart lay somewhere, conscious and alone, far down below him, like a lamp in night. Abandoned it lay, alone, imperishable, immobile with excess of passionate will, his living, sacrificed and offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical, turned to its far-off fount of light and love.
Thank you.
In the luminous stillness of its mute appeal, it looked up to the height it could not see. It yearned from the lunging depths it could not leave. In the center of his vast and faithful trance, halfway between his free and fallen slave, interceding twixt God's day and the mortal's night, accepting worship as its single law, accepting bliss as the sole cause of things, refusing the austere joy which none can share, refusing the calm that lives for calm alone. To her it turned for whom it willed to be. In the passions of its solitary dream, it lay like a close, soundless oratory, where sleeps a consecrated, urgent flow, lit by a single and untrembling ray, and an invisible presence knelt in a pair. On some deep breast of liberating peace, all else was satisfied with quietude. These only knew there was a truth beyond.
Thank you.
All other paths were dumb in centered sleep, consenting to the slow deliberate power which tolerates the world's error and its grief, consenting to the cosmic long delay, timelessly waiting through the patient years. Her coming they had asked for earth and men. This was the fiery point that called her now. Extinction could not quench that lonely fire. Its seeing filled the blank of mind and will. Thought dead, its changeless force abode and grew, armed with intuition of a bliss to which some moved tranquility was the key. It persevered through life's huge emptiness amid the blank denials of the world. It sent its voiceless prayer to the unknown. It listened for the footsteps of its hopes returning through the void immensities. It waited for the fiat of the word that comes through the still self from the Supreme.
Thank you. So now I'll go back to the beginning. Continue.
Canto 3, the House of the Spirit and the New Creation. A mightier task remained than all he had done. To that he turned from which all being comes, a sign attending from the secrecy, which knows the truth ungrasped behind our thoughts, and guards the world with its all-seeing gaze. In the unapproachable stillness of his soul, intense, one-pointed, monumental, lone, patient he sat like an incarnate hope, motionless on a pedestal of prayer. A strength he sought that was not yet on earth, help from a power too great for mortal will. The light of a truth now only seen afar, a sanction from his high omnipotent source. But from the appalling heights there stooped no voice, the timeless lids were closed, no opening came. A neutral helpless void oppressed the ears. In the texture of our bound humanity, he felt the stark resistance, huge and dumb, of our inconscient and unseeing base. The stubborn mute rejection in life's depths, the ignorant no in the origin of things.
Thank you. So we saw at the end of the previous canto that he encounters the Divine Mother, and now other claims had hushed in him their cry, only he longed to draw her presence and power into his heart and mind and breathing frame. Only he yearned to call forever down her healing touch of love and truth and joy into the darkness of the suffering world. His soul was freed and given to her alone. So now we see in the beginning of this canto, Aswapati turned to the Divine Mother, surrendered to her. Intense, one-pointed, monumental, lone, patient, he sat like an incarnate hope, motionless on a pedestal of prayer. Just turn to the Divine Mother, aspiring for her to bring that greater world down, just surrendered to her completely. A strength he sought that was not yet on earth. It's her strength, but also it makes us think of the supramind, the supramental power that had not yet come down upon the earth, the omnipotent force that could change all things here. The light of a truth now only seen afar. So the light of the supermind, the supramental knowledge. The supermind. Yeah. Mm. Mm.
Because it's not only love, but love has the power along with it.
Right.
Take on the adversity, the whole earth and transform.
Mm.
And that's love of power.
Right. So she embodies that. And then we see he's sitting there like an incarnate hope, but from the appalling heights there stooped no voice. The timeless lids were closed. No opening came. A neutral, helpless void oppressed the years. So now that reminds us of the original legend in which Aswapati is said to have worshipped the goddess Savitri for 18 years, praying for 100 sons. So here we have a kind of an allusion to that. But we see also this aspiration of Aswapati, this silent calling, but also waiting for the mother to come. His own will is now laid aside. He realizes also that his power is inadequate to achieve this great aim, to bring this new creation down. So he has to wait for the Divine Mother. And he felt the stark resistance, huge and dumb, of our inconscient and unseeing base, the stubborn, mute rejection in life's depths, the ignorant no in the origin of things. So at that height of consciousness that Aswapati has, he also sees the bottomless depths and the very origin of the evolution out of the inconscient, out of an absolute absence of consciousness or awareness or force or delight, as if a blank negation of the divine. So that is also there at his base, his own physical body. It is the origin of the creation here. Of course, it also was created and is a result of the divine, but from the evolutionary standpoint, it's the origin of all that arises here in the world. And that remains as this anchor in the physical, in the inconscient, the origin of death, the cause of death. So he senses that also within himself. And now, Anandi? So you have the page? So a veiled collaboration with the night, about 3/4 of the way down. Yes.
Sorry. A veiled collaboration with the night, even in himself, survived and hid from his view. Still something in his earthly being kept, its kinship with unconscious whence it came, a shadowy unity with the vanished past, treasure in an old world framed with lurking there, secret, unnoted by the illumined mind, and in subconscious whispers and in dream, still murmured at the mind and spirit's choice, its treacherous elements spread like slippery grains, hoping the incoming truth might stumble and fall, and all ideal voices wandering moan, and plead with a heavenly leniency to the gracious imperfection of our earth and the sweeter weakness of our mortal state. This now he willed to discover and exile, the element in him betraying God.
Thank you. This reminds me of kind of a line that from this talk I did the other day, on Friday, about the hard truth of our lower nature. And there was a line from Savitri where he says that this darkness, the desires of the lower nature, pursue even the saint and the yogin up to, the gates of heaven. So even they are not entirely free of this influence from the lower part of the nature. And so even here we see in King Aswapati, after all he's gone through, even his own physical nature, even in the subconscious, are these desires that still would like to call him back into that lower nature. So a veiled collaboration with the night, even in himself survived and hid from his view. Still something in his earthly being kept its kinship with the inconscient whence it came. Secret, unnoted by the illumining mind, and in subconscious whispers and in dream, still murmured at the mind's and spirit's choice. And old ideal voices wandering moaned and pleaded for a heavenly leniency to the gracious imperfections of our earth and the sweet weaknesses of our mortal state. We saw in that talk that not only this lower vital nature, but that also, he says, actuates the external personality of people. And that external personality wants to persist. It actually is very difficult for it to surrender. He says it hardly knows what real surrender is. There are the higher parts of our being, yes, they will surrender, give themselves, our mind, our higher vital, our psychic parts. But that external personality doesn't want to change. It continues over and over its same dull round of activities, its same ignorance, its same indulgence.
Reflect that line toward the beginning where it says something like human nature cannot endure too much truth. I can't remember the line, but it's something like that. You set the stage for this.
Yeah.
Also, universal nature.
Yeah.
And yoga does not want to constantly limit to concept the yoga or any other. It's not your nature. Beyond point is subconscious nature. It's all, there's no limit to it. You take from other people to your
But our subconscious, our inconscient, that's not an individual thing, that's universal. So we always carry our kinship, our unity with the world in us.
There is an individual nature that each one has to purify.
Yeah.
But there is also a
So let's Let's just read one more yet, and maybe Suresh could finish.
All nature's recounted space were stripped bare. All her dim crypts and corners searched with fire, where refuge, instincts, and unshaped revolts could shelter find in darkness century against the white purity of heaven's cleansing flame. All seemed to have perished that was undivine, yet some new test dissident might escape, and still a central lure of the blind force, for the inconscience too is infinite. The more its abyss we incite to sound, the more it stretches stretches endlessly. Then lest a human cry should spoil the truth, he tore desire up from its bleeding roots and offered to the gods the vacant place. Thus could he bear the touch immaculate, a lost and mightiest transformation came. His soul was all in front, like a great sea, flooding the mind and body with its waves. His being spread to ember the universe, united the within and the without, to make of life a cosmic harmony, an ember of the immanent divine.
Thank you. So we see the effort that he undertakes, this tapasya, to tear out the roots of this desire from his being. All her dim crypts and corners searched with fire, where refugee instincts and unshaped revolts could shelter find in darkness sanctuary against the white purity of heaven's cleansing flame. And then he speaks of the inconscient. For the inconscient too is infinite. The more its abysses we insist to sound, the more it stretches endlessly. And then a last and mightiest transformation came. Now for me, this suggests a supramental change. Sri Aurobindo speaks of the triple transformation, the psychic, the spiritual, and the supramental. So this suggests that to me. I don't know. Shraddhavan doesn't mention it in her commentary. But I get other hints of it in the passages that follow. But we see that it unites the within and the without to make of life a cosmic harmony and empire of the immanent divine. And we see then that he'll describe this world, this new creation, in which unity and diversity are harmonized and reconciled. And that also is the nature of the supramental creation, the new creation that the Mother and Sri Aurobindo had aspired to bring down. And it's also interesting, as we were reading through the canto, that the Mother speaks of this new creation and she says, it's already here. This new world is born. It's born, that it exists. And then she speaks of it as if a lining of our world, as if the two were existing kind of parallel to one another, our world of ignorance and this supramental creation, and that little by little, the vibrations from that world were infiltrating our world and substituting its vibrations of harmony for our vibrations of ignorance and suffering. So that seems to be this process of the transformation of this world. But here he describes this world in kind of a fullness, as if he sees and is living there, here. And she, the Mother, also in the agenda speaks of moving in that world freely. She would walk, for in her trance she'd be in her room, but she experienced herself just walking into that world.
In order for this other thing to happen, because the process has to go that way. Otherwise, there's no more. And now we're at that point, so there's nothing left. So we go to the reading root up. So there's that emptiness, and that's what the supramental light is.
Yeah. And then later he'll talk about aspects of himself. He felt part of himself immersed in one world of the darkness, and in the other part of him was above in this other world, and his heart was kind of the bridge between these. And that's kind of how the Mother also describes her experience, as kind of being between these two worlds and bringing those vibrations of the supramental world into our world. So,
at least the bridge, and the Mother is the bridge, and Savitri is she's on the other side, she's on the other side of the bridge. So that's the
she's the golden bridge.
She's still the bridge.
We don't talk a lot about the talk, no? But no doubt that Auroville is very strong. But I don't know, because I cannot explain this book into science, but I tell you, to me, the best Auroville in Savitri is here.
Yeah, this is
the poetry is amazing. We don't talk a lot about that, but it really takes you fully into not only what to say, but how to say. For me, it was a very big experience to translate this
Yeah, if I'm correct, and he's describing kind of the supramental world here in this canto. It's kind of one of the few places that he does that in the book. So I think it's mainly here. I kind of see it, and then in Canto at the end of, in Book 11, he seems to describe it. So we'll stop there for today. We're running over.
great world rhythm were heartbeats of one soul. To feel was a flame discovery of God. All mind was a single heart of many strings, all life a song of many meeting lines. For words were many, but the self was one. This knowledge was now made a cosmos seed. This seed was cased in the safety of the light. It needed not a shield of ignorance.
So I wish you all a happy new year, a year of light and progress. So thanks to Sri Aurobindo.